What would you do right now if you had no reason to fear? What would you try? What would you attempt? If you're a faithful teacher, a faithful servant of God where He's placed you, you are a success. And failing is only going to make you stronger.
As best as we may try to prevent it, it's going to come. And how we personally respond and how we guide our students to respond is so key.
Failure always makes us face our imperfections, and that's a very good thing.
Welcome to the BJU Press Teacher Edition podcast, where Christian educators are encouraged and inspired as we bring you interviews, practical ideas, strategies, and answer your questions about teaching in today's culture. And here's your host, Jenny Copeland.
Welcome back to the Teacher Edition podcast. All right, I have a question for you. Have you ever failed at something? I'm guessing each of us could say, yes, we have. Do you have a particular failure that pops into your mind? Maybe with quite the chagrin, but something that just pops in your mind is, yeah, I remember, that was quite the failure. You know, failure can come as a result of a variety of different issues or elements, maybe lack of preparation, maybe lack of information, you name it. But regardless, I think it's safe to say we have all failed at some point. I think it's also safe to say that failure is hard. We are wired to be successful. We're wired to keep face. We're wired to appear prepared and competent. And failure is hard. Well, that's where we're going to park for today's session. Handling failure. You know, people handle failure differently. And honestly, just like so many in today's world don't know how to disagree well, they don't know how to confront well, and so on. Failing well is also a struggle. Of course, this is so evident in some of the big industries, some of the arenas, maybe like sports or celebrities. But you know what? This is also in our classrooms. So we have a great topic to unpack today, and I am so glad you're joining in. As we get rolling with today's episode, let me again encourage you to visit our website. That's teachereditionpodcast.com. That site is easy to navigate. You can easily access just a huge library of episodes that we have created over the past 3 years. Also, just a reminder to like, follow, and rate us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast. Your feedback is so helpful to us and really to others who are looking for good shows to listen to. And following and subscribing the show is also going to help those episodes drop right in and remind you that they're there and ready so you don't miss one single episode with our fantastic guests. I also want to encourage you to leave us a review. I know it takes a minute of time, but if you're enjoying the show, tell us why. That helps us know what you're enjoying. But again, it helps others who are looking for great shows as well. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're Teacher Edition Podcast on Facebook. And by the way, if you're listening to the podcast, another reminder, you can jump over to YouTube and catch the video of this interview as well. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Teacher Edition Pod. Once again, Teacher Edition Pod. As we get today's episode rolling, let me introduce you to our guest. So Dr. Jay Knolls is joining us today for this interesting topic. Dr. Knolls currently serves as the president of Wilmington Christian Academy in Wilmington, North Carolina. He also serves as the lead pastor of Grace Baptist Church. He's the founder and president of Wondrous Word Ministries and has authored 2 books. He's very busy, if you can't tell. Jay and his wife, Michelle, have been married for over 30 years, and they have 3 children. Dr. Knolls, it is a privilege to have you here on the show today. Thanks for giving your time to be with us.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much. It's good to be with you.
Okay, so we have this really interesting topic to discuss today. It's an excellent and just a super practical topic for today. So I'm so glad you suggested it. We're going to talk about failing well. I don't know, that almost kind of sounds awkward to even say. But before we jump in too deeply, Dr. Knolls, I wonder, could you provide, I guess, an example of what failing well looks like? Maybe just to give us a little clarity on where we're heading with this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a minute ago that failure is present in every area of life. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter your profession.
So true.
You're going to face failure somewhere along the way. But one of the areas I think failure stands out the most clearly in my mind is the world of athletics. And I know this isn't a sports podcast, so I'm not going to
That's okay. We can let alone sports.
long about sports. But there's also probably not a lot of tennis fans in the world. But I watch the major tennis tournaments, the 4 big
Wow.
ones of the year.
Interesting.
Well, I want to tell you a really quick story about a tennis player by the name of Amanda Anisimova. Her name sounds Russian, but she's actually an American tennis player. And Amanda grew up playing tennis. And by the time she was a very young teenager, 14, 15 years old, she was capturing the attention of the tennis world. And to the point, she had major corporations sponsoring her, and she had a lot of attention just placed on her life. Well, she reached the place where she walked away from tennis. She
Oh,
completely walked away from it and said, I'm done.
interesting.
She sat out for a few months. I believe it was approximately a year. And she came back and played professional tennis a year ago in 2025.
Hmm.
And Amanda made her way all the way to the finals of arguably the biggest tennis tournament known to most people, and that is Wimbledon.
Uh-huh.
She got all the way to the finals, and Americans are rooting for her, pulling for her, and Amanda lost that match 6 love in 57 minutes. Okay, to put love means 0 in tennis. To put that in
Right.
perspective, that's like losing a baseball game 45 to nothing.
Oh, wow.
That is just an absolute destruction. Here is
Yeah.
here is some of the headlines that came out after that. People called it the worst Wimbledon final ever. It was the first time since 1911 that a player had lost 6 love, 6 love. Let that sink in for a minute. You on a
That's
national
horrible.
stage, worldwide stage, you just got destroyed. Well, a few months later, Wimbledon is in July. A few months later, Amanda's playing again in the United States Open. And I was preparing to speak on this topic at a teachers conference in South Carolina last year. And I am watching Amanda saying, "Please win this match. It'll be the greatest comeback ever." She got
Right, right.
all the way to the finals at the US Open, and she lost. She
Oh,
got
wow.
she got
Twice.
she got beat again. It was closer this time, but she got beat again. But here's why I tell that story. Here's a quote from Amanda after the match. Okay, it's not that she was excited about losing, but listen to what she said. She said, "I'm motivated, and I hope I can keep working really hard to give myself more opportunities to be in more and more finals." She didn't say I quit. By the way, after that tournament, she was ranked number 4 out of the ladies in the world. And she didn't quit. She didn't give up
Wow.
even after 2 losses in finals. And it makes me wonder. I heard this a long time ago. You can tell the character of someone by what makes them quit.
True.
What makes us give up? What failure is so big in our minds that we walk away from something or we don't try again? And I think failure very much limits the success. I want to talk about success in a few minutes, but the success that I believe God wants us to have and
Hmm.
experience.
Wow. Incredible start to this podcast. That was amazing. Quite the stories. I don't know. To get back out there, that's pretty impressive. And to say that at the end of that, in front of the world, we're worried about our little failures where nobody's watching. How about in front of the whole world? So we often only focus on success. You kind of mentioned that there just a second ago. I know sometimes in the classroom, we're almost hesitant to mention or discuss certain topics because the students might go investigate them or try them out. I actually do a session on cheating with technology, and we talk about the importance of talking with your students about cheating. And that's often a topic that's, ignored or avoided because it might give students ideas about how to do that. So people are sometimes hesitant. I tell them, talk about it, get it out there. What about failure? Obviously, you feel that's a really important topic, but why? Why do you believe discussing failure is so important?
Well, first of all, I don't think anybody sets out in the world to fail. Yeah, I don't think no one probably listens to this podcast, woke up this morning and said, "I just really want to fail today. That's my
We
goal."
hope
I
not.
sure hope not. If you did, maybe we can do another session
We
on
might need
that
to
at
do
some
another
point.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do a lot of marriage counseling and I've
Hmm.
premarital counseling, especially. I'm in a season of doing a bunch of them right now.
Oh, yes.
And never have I had a couple say, I do a session on your goals for marriage. I've never had a couple say, "Wait, we just plan to fail. We really would like our marriage to fail." That's not something that's wired into us. But I believe this: how people view and handle failure will affect and impact every area of our lives. Since failure is actually more common than success, I believe we would be wise to prepare for it. You hear the term all the time, overnight success. The reality is the statement goes that person's overnight success took them 10 or 12 years to get to
Right.
that point, right?
Right. Right.
You see it as a wow, there's this great big success, but the reality is they've often failed many, many times. So how we respond to failure, I think, is very, very important. Now, I want to share a quote with you, and I would give credit to who said this, except I don't remember who said it. But listen to this quote, and I think this is very important for teachers. So I love the opportunity to share this with your audience. It says this. It says, if our schools really wanted to prepare our children for life, they would offer classes in failure and disappointment. Our kids may never need to know algebra or chemistry in their adult lives, but they will definitely need to know how to handle failure and disappointment. I think
Wow.
that is very true. Now, our algebra teacher here at Wilmington Christian Academy, I've read that quote somewhere, and he said, well, Jay, that's what algebra's for, is to teach everybody how to manage failure. But
Right. Right.
I don't know if that's true for some, certainly. But you think about even the Bible. You think about the people in scripture. Let me just read a few examples: Adam, Moses, Noah, Samson, Ruth, Esther, Jonah, Saul, David, Solomon, Peter, Paul, Thomas, Mary Magdalene. They all have something in common. They failed
Fail. Hmm.
many, many times, but look at how God used them. So the good news is God uses failures like all of us for his glory. And so let's not be afraid of failure, but put it in perspective and how we handle that. And I mentioned this a minute ago. I just think our typical view of success is what thwarts and limits us when it comes to failure, because as Americans especially, we have this view of success that is based on what we have accomplished, how big our name is, do people know who we are. What I want to read for you, what I define success as, and hopefully it's a biblically based, I hope, biblically based definition. It says, success is glorifying God by intentionally investing the gifts and abilities God has equipped us with into everything that we do, allowing us to find purpose, fulfillment, and satisfaction in faithful service to Him. If you're a faithful teacher, a faithful servant of God where He's placed you, you are a success. And failing is only going to make you stronger and better. So
Yeah.
I think it's an important topic, to be sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned we typically only focus on success. We have an idea of how that looks, how it feels, but I wonder, is there a correlation? And you started to touch on this. I wonder if you can unpack it just a little bit more. Do you think that our typical view of success affects then how we view failure? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. So you think about the most common fear that people have. If somebody's asked the question, what are you most afraid of? The most common answer is the fear of public speaking.
Interesting.
And my daughter is big, was all her life. She's been big into acting and on stage and singing in
Mhm.
public and stuff like that. And I said that to her one time, and she thought she was like maybe middle school, high school. She thought about it for a second. She said, why would anybody be afraid of public speaking? Well, you have a gift in that area. It doesn't bother you. By the way, on most lists, fear of death is never listed. So the
Really?
reality is you would rather die than stand in front of a group of people and public speak. But here's the issue. Here's why I
And
bring
maybe
that up.
fail.
Here's why I bring that up, though. You're not afraid of public speaking. You're
Mm,
afraid of failing.
yeah, good
You're
point.
you're afraid of what people are going to think about you, the perspective that you have, or you say something wrong, you make a mistake, you humiliate yourself, somebody is going to, demean you or put you down. That's what it's the fear of man.
It's powerful.
Yeah, that drives that fear. And if we're afraid to fail, you're never going to stand up and try to do what's right. For a
That's
long,
right.
for a long, long time, I used to say, if you're not failing, you're not trying. I don't exactly agree with that anymore. If you're not failing, you're not growing. You can't grow without failure. It's impossible.
Wow. Okay, now I know you have mentioned that you use the acronym PREVAIL to teach on the topic of failure. Interesting choice of a term there. I wondered if we could take just a few minutes and dig into that. So what does that entail? Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, I would love to. Let us start us off where we jump into the first letter P.
Okay.
And it's a quote from Thomas Edison.
Okay.
And he said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. In other words, every success takes a lot of work. And so the P means prize failure. Rather than fearing failure, see it as positive feedback in your life. Rather than seeing it as a personal setback, see it as the process of sanctification in process. That I am a work in process, that God is working in me and through me. And we prize failure, not because it's enjoyable or fun or comfortable, but because it is helping us grow. I would suggest that most people listening right now can look back over their lives and say, I've learned more from my failures than my success.
Yeah.
Cartoonist Stephen McCraney said this. He said, the master has failed more times than the beginner has ever even tried. So if we're going to be a master of anything, we have to prize failure and make sure that we don't see it negatively.
Okay, so that's a little opposite, I guess, of what would be normal. Like we don't prize failure for sure. So talk to us, why do you think we have such a difficult time seeing it positively? Like what you're asking us to do is kind of opposite. Why is it so hard?
I think we tend to make all failures fatal. And
True. It's a good way to put it.
yeah, and they're not, right? Very few failures in life are truly fatal. They may feel that way for a moment. I think we are
Hmm.
so averse to discomfort.
Oh,
And
yes.
quite frankly, in our culture today, I see this, maybe you see this as well, is that we also are averse to hard work that it takes to get to where we believe God wants us to be.
It's a lost art for sure.
It truly is. And the disappointments that come along with that.
Hmm.
I remember when I published my first book, I was so excited and it was just going to explode and it was going to sell all these copies and just excited to get what I'd worked on out there. And the truth is the returns were not what I expected. It wasn't what I prayed for.
Mm.
That's disappointing.
Sure.
So you quit, give up, don't try again. No, you keep writing, you keep working. What did you learn the first time? And it's
Hmm.
not about success, isn't about selling the book as much as sharing your work with people.
Right.
Well, if I prize failure, what can I learn about writing the first book that maybe I can apply it to the next one? And that helps me be better and grow through it.
Okay, so we did the P. What about
Yeah.
the R?
So the R is an important one, and that is risk failure. So right now, I'm sitting in Wilmington, North Carolina. You're in South Carolina. Both of us are under severe storm warnings right now.
Okay.
And every day getting out of bed is a risk.
That's true.
Every day driving to work. I live in Wilmington. People in Wilmington, I love them, but they can't drive cars. Many of them should not be driving vehicles.
They must train the drivers in Greenville.
Oh man, I've driven to Greenville
They're here too.
It's not much different.
Nope.
Life is very risky.
Hmm.
It's risky just getting out of bed in the morning. It's risky driving down the road. But here's the thing: accomplishing great things for the Lord, not for our glory, never for that, but for His glory, means we have to put ourselves on the line and never clutch to the illusion of guaranteed security. We really want to be comfortable, secure, and that is counterintuitive when you think about risk.
Hmm.
Risk really shouldn't be evaluated based on the fear that we have. Everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid of something or even the probability of success, but on the value of what we believe the Lord has caused us to achieve. And if we're going to accomplish things for the Lord, it's going to require us to work through failures. Think about some of the biblical folks that I mentioned a few minutes ago. David, maybe just as a quick example. David had failed multiple times. And when David failed, he failed pretty egregiously.
Yes.
But God didn't give up on him. God still used him. And David remained faithful to God throughout his entire life. Was he perfect? He was far from it, but he was faithful even in his failures. So we have to risk it. We have to step out of our comfort zone at times and risk things for the glory of God.
So I think something you said, it's not just that we don't want to do some of this, but actually we fear it as humans. Why would you say that we really fear putting ourselves out there and risking failure? How does the fear play in there?
I think we are so self-focused that we only see ourselves at those moments. We're not
Yeah,
thinking clearly about how potentially I could help someone or invest in someone or how I could teach them a truth about scripture. We're often thinking about how people are going to perceive me. So I've been pastoring now a long time, and I can remember the first time, as a senior pastor, and you're the person each and every week in the pulpit. And I would walk out of the pulpit thinking to myself, I don't think I was doing it on purpose, but I was thinking to myself, how did people perceive me?
sure.
Did they quote unquote like the message?
Right.
Did it keep their attention? And quite frankly, I don't want to bore anybody on purpose. That's not my goal. But quite frankly, I'm not preaching for them. I'm preaching for the glory of God. But if it's all about my glory and I'm worried about my self image and I'm worried about how people are going to see me, then my fear of that is going to keep me handcuffed and we're not going to step out and try.
It does handcuff you. It just paralyzes you from doing something like that. So, yeah, so true. Okay, we did P was prize, R was risk. So, we're on to E. So, what do you have for E?
So E is embrace failure. Consider it your friend, not your enemy.
Okay, now I think you're going too far. Okay, you better tell us
Oh,
more about
it's
this.
gonna get even more difficult, I think.
Oh, great.
Failure is painful for us. Well, what
True.
what we learn from it is so valuable that we can't bypass it altogether. And I know I said this a few minutes ago, but seeing failure as success and progress helps us embrace that. I have a great team around me, and they are very, very direct with me, and they are very honest with me. And I'm generally a big picture person. I don't. I'm not overly gifted in detail sometimes. So they kind of execute my dream. They make it happen. But there are times they look at me and say, "That's a really bad idea. Like that's not going to
We
work."
all need that in our
Yeah,
lives.
oh, absolutely. So they've probably saved me from a couple things. But a couple years ago, I threw out something I wanted to try, and it was a colossal failure. It did not work. It did not go how I prayed it would go. It didn't go how we intended it to go. So, you know what? We really won't do that again, but we tailored it to do it, that meet the same goal, but do it differently. We learned from
Right.
that. So it's our
Hmm.
friend. It taught us that's not going to work, but this might work. And
Yeah.
what we tried the next time was much more successful. So if we don't embrace failure, we're not going to learn from it. We don't invite it. We don't invite it. Not saying that.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, we don't invite it, but we have to very much embrace it as part of life. It's part of life.
Yeah. Let's loop back around on that. I like that phrase you use, success in progress. How do you think that the idea of seeing failure that way as success in progress could actually, long term, could change our perspective on failure, in the media, but just as we're working through a failure, how can it change that?
Well, we're going to get to this in a couple letters here, but one of the
Okay.
things I think is very key for failures for most of us, when we fail, the first thing we want to do is forget about it.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think that
Erase that
is,
memory.
yeah, that is a huge mistake. You don't
Mhm.
want to forget about it. You don't want to dwell on it. You don't want to be held captive to it. You don't want a past failure to define you. You certainly don't want that. But if you're going to embrace it truly, you have to let it teach you. Because if it doesn't teach you and you don't learn from those mistakes, then you've went through that pain and suffering really for nothing.
True.
So it's your
Hmm.
friend to teach you success and progress. I have to learn from what I failed before and what am I going to do differently. It's been said a million times. The definition of success is, or the definition of insanity rather, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Well, if I'm my head is in the sand and I'm not paying attention, embracing failure, I am doomed to make the same failures over and over and over again. My wife is by far my biggest asset in helping me see failures accurately. And sometimes I will feel like, oh, I really bombed that sermon or that didn't work or whatever. And she's usually more honest than I think outside people are generally more honest with us than what we see for ourselves. It's not as
Sure.
bad as as we think. But she also loves me enough to say, yeah, that really did not work very well. And then help me see, well, how can that teach you to have a success later? How does that
Right.
help you do that? So sometimes it's a group project in that
Right.
embracing
Yeah,
it.
that outside perspective. And that's perfect for the classroom. I mean, we're talking to teachers in this podcast, and that's what we're doing every day is walking the students through their thinking, their approach to failures. I mean, they're not all going to do everything right the first time and get it all perfect and do it accurately. There are things that they're going to do that are going to fail, and helping them embrace that and see it as a teaching moment's huge.
Well, and I think that's a huge point because I'm not a classroom teacher. I taught at a community college for a while, but I've never taught consistently. I teach
Sure.
some in the high school, but not consistently.
Yeah.
I think how teachers respond to failure is huge. Because if you as a teacher or me as a pastor, president of a school, respond to failure always, woe is me, negative,
Sure.
I do nothing right, I can't do anything right. You're teaching your students, your congregants, people under your leadership that failure really is something to be avoided at all costs. And that just is not, I don't think, a lesson we want to teach children
Right.
or even adults. We want to teach them how do you handle it in a way that is honoring to
Yeah.
the Lord. Yeah.
Absolutely. Great thought. Okay, we're on to the letter V. What do you have for us for V?
So V is a little bit connected to the other two, similar in some ways, but that is value failure.
Okay.
I would say nothing builds your character as much as failure. You think about how often we are blinded by success. When people are
It's true.
successful, we're coasting through life, everything is good. There's not a lot of character refinement in us because everything seems to be going easy for us. We're comfortable, we're succeeding. But failure signals to us that we are courageously making progress into new territory. Because very often in our complacency, we do settle for what is easy, for what we've always done before. So this year's lesson plans, they're going to look exactly like last year's lesson plans because that worked last year. I'm not going to try something new because I already did that. Well, if I value failure and I see it as an opportunity to achieve something greater, and I remember that failures are not tombstones, right? It's not a death mark
Right.
for me.
Right.
They're mile markers along the highway that God is leading me down. And if I don't value failure, I don't allow it to refine my character, my abilities that God has given to me. If I don't value it in that way, I'm going to become complacent very quickly and I'm just going to go on cruise control and I'm just going to coast toward the end. One of the things I don't do well personally is I don't settle for what we did before. Let's do something. Let's tweak that. Let's make it better. Let's improve on it. What criticism did we get? And is it fair? If it's fair, let's change it.
Mhm.
Let's adjust it. And I think we value failure in a way that opens the door for people to give us honest feedback. You want somebody to say, that wasn't the best. You want people to have the freedom to say that, whether that's
Sure.
your principal or your administrator, whatever. That's something we need to hear. That's love in action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of talked about it in the classroom a little bit. What about in growing in Christ? What is it about failure that makes it so valuable in the sanctification process? Or how do we view that?
Oh my, that is a huge topic. So when I think through people, even a couple people right now that come to my mind, they are anchored to a failure that happened to them
Mm,
20, 25 years ago.
yes.
And
Hmm.
it's almost like their lives are frozen in time. And no matter how many times you remind them of the fact God has forgiven you for that, the people involved, that maybe you sinned against somebody in that failure, those people have forgiven you, but they can't let it go. And they continue to linger in that failure to the point that it destroys their day, their current day today. It destroys their life now. And I don't think God intends for any of us to live our lives like that.
Right.
It's a waste of the God-given time that we have,
Sure.
but I think it does hold people back. And I'll tell you, we have a relatively large faculty. I don't know how many there are, but we have a good sized faculty. And I know that there are some of them that feel like in the classroom, even that if they make a mistake, it's every parent's going to call me and I'm going to be, at the receiving end of all this criticism or whatever.
Hmm.
And very often you might get one or two people. But
Right.
here's the funny thing to always remember about your failure. I had this happen to me about 6, 8 weeks ago. I called a guy in to talk about something. There was something, nothing bad, just said, "Hey, can you stop by for a minute?" And he talked to you. So we have this conversation, goes very well. I brought something to his attention. And he was like, "Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you very much." He said, "I'm just glad to know that you're still willing to talk to me after what I did like last year."
Oh.
And I leaned across my desk and I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You don't remember when I did this?" I'm like, "Now that you say that, yes, I remember that now, but
No.
I never thought anything more about it." Our failures in our minds last substantially longer
Yes.
than they last in the minds of people. As a pastor, I don't know if this is good news or bad news, but most people, if you ask them next Sunday what I preached on this past Sunday, yet we're recording on Monday here, yesterday, they probably couldn't tell you. They have no idea. They can't remember. People's memories are a lot shorter than we give them credit for, but
Yeah.
not our own, not our own.
Right. Yeah. Great insights. Okay. So I'm watching the time. So we've done PREV. We're up to A. What do you
Okay,
have for A?
A is huge, and that
Uh oh.
is admit your failure.
Oh, yeah,
Take
that is big.
take responsibility for it. Don't excuse them. Don't become defensive over them. No matter how strong an excuse may sound in your head, please don't use it. Own it. Yes, there are always going to be times when circumstances happen and things happen, and we can blame this or the other. I would suggest to you that you do yourself a lot more good than harm by admitting your failures. And especially for leaders, if you have any principals listening, administrators, other pastors listening, whatever you may be, or teachers in a classroom, you're a leader. If leader is defined as influence, you're a leader. Own your mistakes. Don't hide
Yeah.
from them. Admit them. Don't bury them. Don't blame everybody else. Take responsibility for it. And so often we're afraid to take responsibility because what we believe it will cost us. But I would say in reality, the benefits far outweigh our tendency to cover them up. When you admit your failure, I would suggest most people respect you more than less because you
Agree.
had the courage to own it and
Yeah.
take responsibility for it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, what are your thoughts on why do you think leaders find it so hard? I know you kinda touched on it. I think often we think, like, nobody's gonna respect me. If I admit that I had a failure, I'll never get respect. No, actually you get more respect. It's opposite of what you think. I don't know your thoughts on that, but especially with leaders, it seems really hard.
Yeah, they have most leaders have trouble with a very simple word, and it's the word wrong.
Mhm.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of people have a very difficult time saying those words. I read a book a number of years ago, and it was written by a guy who had been in the United States Navy. And the whole premise of the book for leaders was extreme ownership. If something happens in your organization and you are the leader over that organization, it's your fault. In the sense, you didn't train that person correctly, you didn't invest enough time into that person effectively, you didn't, see maybe a potential for that problem brewing, and you didn't deal with it in a timely manner. The list is long, but the point being that if something happens, we have to take ownership of that and fix it. Don't bury it. Don't lie about it. Please don't blame shift. Take responsibility for it.
Yeah, so true. Okay, on to I. What do you have for
Yeah,
I?
I is interpret failure. Ask yourself a lot of questions after you fail. Was my preparation thorough? Were my expectations unrealistic? What positives will actually come out of my failure? What role did I play in my failure? Where do I need to improve? What would I do differently next time? Evaluating and interpreting failure is not pleasant, but as I mentioned before, it prevents us from making the same mistakes over and over again. I meet with my pastoral staff every Monday morning. We come in, and the first question on our agenda each and every week is feedback from Sunday.
Hmm,
What happened? What
right.
worked? What didn't work? What feedback did we get? Not that we're controlled by that, but we want to hear that. We want to
Sure.
learn from that so that we can correct. And we try new things all the time. We had a big major change in our order of service recently, which I know for
Oh,
some believers,
no.
like that is like,
That is big.
that's terrible.
We
But
don't always sit after the prayer now?
yeah,
Oh, no.
no, no, we do things different order, and we got nothing but actual positive from it. And,
That's
if
great.
you're held captive to that, to the order of service or whatever, you're not gonna, take risk. You're not gonna change things up, and I think that's rather boring, actually. So, let's interpret failure, apply it, and try something new.
Now, but I think that most people try to forget their failure. So you're talking about, like sit around and talk about it, like, dig through it. And most people are just trying to forget it. So how do we get the courage to actually spend time assessing the failure? Like how do you get that? Think about, I mean, a principal with teachers, a lead teacher with, or department head with a department. Like how do you get that to actually happen?
You have to convince yourself that it truly is for your benefit.
Mm,
You have
hmm.
to believe that it is for your good to go back. I like your illustration, digging through the sand like an archaeologist. You're gonna dig up what happened. You're gonna try to interpret what happened. And then even in that, asking those questions, I won't go through them again, but ask yourself those probing questions. Where did I fail to plan? Where did I fail to prepare properly? But also, if it's a criticism, for instance, someone gives you a statement about something that they criticize you over, whatever that may be. Even in that, you have to ask the questions, is there any truth in that? And it doesn't matter the person that said it. We're pretty good at accepting criticism from people we know like us or truly love us, but our enemies, those people that don't think very highly of us, sometimes they might be right too.
Hmm.
And then taking that input, taking that failure, owning it, changing what we need to change. And if it isn't true or it doesn't need to be changed, then put it behind you. Don't forget for that you can forget about it. Let it
Yeah.
go. Don't
Don't
spend the
let it define
next
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
don't spend the next 10 hours, 10 days, 10 months, 10 years thinking about it.
Right.
That
Yeah.
doesn't help you.
It kind of made me think when you were saying, I had a pastor growing up who used to say, don't waste a good trial. And it
Sure,
kind of makes me think
sure.
like, don't waste a good failure either. If you had a failure, use it, learn from it. Okay. So we had prize, risk, embrace, value, admit, interpret, and we're to L. So
You
what do you have for L?
you just gave it to us. It's learn from
Oh,
failure.
oh, hey
Yeah,
there.
there you go. You have to learn from it, and I've already talked a little bit about that, but our ability to fail and our ability to learn rather through failure, it really grows in proportion to our ability to handle those setbacks and those disappointments. Take the lessons that failure teaches you, make the adjustments, make the corrections, and move forward. Failure, oh, here's the other problem. Failure always makes us face our imperfections. And that's a very good thing because the perfection is always an illusion. Nobody is perfect. We say that, but we often don't live like that. Don't fatalize your failure, embrace it, learn from it, and grow from it. Because failure to learn from failure will cost you deeply.
I was going to ask you about that. What's the cost of refusing to learn from it? What if you're just going to bury it and ignore it?
Yeah.
What happens?
Well, number one, it's going to cost you time.
Hmm.
It's
Oh,
going to
true. Yeah.
it's going to cost you tons of time. It's going to cost you potentially money and other resources. Imagine if you're stubborn about a new program that you that you want to start or launch, and you're just trying to do it the way you believe it has to be done, and it's failing repeatedly, well, you're throwing away money. Number 3, you're throwing away opportunity. You're throwing away opportunities that could be in the future because you're still stuck in this mode that you're making this work or trying to make this work, and you're expending all this energy and time that you're committing the same failure again and again. And then fourth, I would say it also can eventually cost you your testimony. That if you are failing repeatedly and you're not learning from it, you're not admitting it, eventually people are going to read that as you're not very spiritually minded. You're not really surrendering your heart and life to Christ as much as you're surrendering it to your own ideas and
Right.
plans. So it
Right.
can be very costly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so in the few minutes we have left, let's bring this really close to home. And I'm hearing so many things here. I mean, this is not only for teachers and administrators learning to fail, but us as we're directing our students to learn how to fail and walking them through that. Like there's so much to apply here. What about our own failures? What about lessons from them? I mean, we can all sit and think of things we've gone through. Maybe you can even, I don't know if you can think of a time when failure taught a valuable lesson. I mean, I have some popping in my mind. I don't know if you have some too.
I have a life, this sounds like an overly dramatic statement, but it's true. I have a life-changing failure that happened to me my freshman year in college. And I'll take a minute to just tell you about it. So
Sure.
when I was in, I'll give you a little bit longer version, not terribly long, but I grew up, my parents were uneducated. My mother, I think, went to school through about the 6th or 7th grade. My dad dropped out of high school. So academics was not central in my life growing up. And I went to high school with one purpose only, to stay eligible for football and baseball. That's all I cared about. So the teachers would give me the best book out of the brand new book because they knew at the end of the year it was coming back in the exact same condition. I wasn't going to touch it. But something happened in my life. A teacher in high school actually greatly impacted my life and taught me the value of education. So I started falling in love, and I learned a lesson my junior, senior in high school, that if you tried in school, you actually got better grades. I never knew that before. It was a
Amazing.
earth-shattering moment.
Yes.
So I go to college, and I'm a freshman at the University of Delaware, and I'm in a calculus class. And I come up to my very first exam in college. And the night before, a good friend of mine who we had gone to the same high school, he came over and we studied together for this calculus test. Well, we were convinced that we were ready for the test, and so we spent the rest of the night playing video games or doing whatever. So I go in, I take the test, and the day the teacher is giving the exam back, her name was Dr. Morris. Dr. Morris is walking through the classroom and she's giving each individual student their exam back. Well, she hands me mine and she hands it to me face down. She puts it on my desk.
Could be good, could be bad.
Yeah, I knew good was not on the option table there. I was like, this is probably very bad. She looked at me and she said, I will see you Saturday morning in the cafeteria at 8 a.m.
Oh,
It wasn't a question. It wasn't an option.
I assume
You,
it wasn't a celebratory breakfast.
it was not. So I turned it over, and at the top of the page was a very big 42%
Oh,
and the big old red F on top. I failed. And I went home that night and thinking to myself, just to be perfectly honest with you, I really am incapable of college. I really don't have the ability to do this. I'm just going to drop out. I'm going to quit. Clearly, I'm not cut out for this. And spent some time in the pit of self-pity. And eventually, I convinced myself I'm going to go that Saturday morning and I'm going to go hear what Dr. Morris has to say to me. And I went, and she spent the next 6, 7, 8, 10 weeks meeting with me every Saturday morning and teaching me not only calculus, but teaching me how to study, how to be
wow.
how to be a student. She changed my life. And that failure, had I not failed at that point in my life, personally, I believe I would have coasted through life and I would have done who knows what with my
Sure.
life.
Sure.
But that failure was a point in my life where I had to say, what do you really want to do with your life? Do you really
Wow.
want to invest it in something bigger than yourself? Or do you want to keep being selfish and living for your own purposes and your own dreams and your own ideas of what success is? She changed my life, and that F was the greatest thing that ever happened to me because it was truly feedback to tell me I didn't study for that test. I didn't
Yeah.
put time into that test. If I was going
Right.
to be there, pay tuition, and be a student, I was going to be a student. And I became, over the next couple of years, a straight A student and learned
Wow.
very much how to be, you know, very good in school by the grace of God. Best
And
thing.
kudos to her for
Yo,
turning it around that
absolutely.
way and not just, well, another failure. Like she was
Absolutely.
determined to help you through that failure and use it for good in your life.
Absolutely. And by the way, there was no lecture. It's not like she sat down and
Wow.
said, well, clearly you didn't prepare for this test, young man. It wasn't that at
You got
all.
that.
It was
Yeah.
open your book to page whatever and let's get started.
Wow.
Yeah, it was huge.
That
Huge.
is amazing. Wow. Okay, so I know that this topic could branch into so many other discussions. Like I feel like we could have many, many episodes about this. And I don't want to skip, though I know we're running close on time, but I didn't want to skip over any other thought you had. Did you have any concluding thoughts you wanted to leave with us or anything else you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Let me just give you three concluding thoughts on this. Before I do that, let me just share one more quote with you. It comes from John Maxwell, a very common known author. I'm sure everybody knows who he is. He said this. He said, many people who struggle with chronic failure do so because they think of no one but themselves. They worry about what other people think of them. They scramble to make sure no one gets the better of them. They continually focus on protecting their turf. I think that is a fantastically
Yeah.
accurate
Well
quote.
said.
Yeah, said better than I certainly ever could. So let me
Mhm.
just leave you with three quick conclusions. Number one, since failure is inevitable, perseverance and humility are messages we have to preach to ourselves each and every day. You have to prevail. You have to persevere. You have to humble yourself. It's not about winning. It's about running the race that God has given to you. Number two, if you are coasting through life and succeeding in practically everything that you are doing, you're likely not taking enough risks in your life. Push yourself to do the next thing. What is next on the list? Maybe you're listening to this thinking, God has laid a desire in my heart, but I'm too afraid to try. What would you do right now if you had no reason to fear? What would you try? What would you attempt? If you're coasting through life, it's quite possible that you're not taking enough risks in your life. Don't be reckless. Don't be reckless, but be willing to take risks. And then the last one would be honoring our creator is why we manage failure in a God honoring way. We prize failure, we take risks, we embrace the times when we come up short. We value failure enough to push forward. We admit our failures, interpret our mistakes, and most importantly, we learn from them and allow God to use them in our lives to make us more like Christ and to prepare us to use us to a greater degree for his glory. So let's fail, but let's fail well and let's learn from it and become better for it. It is truly success and progress.
Well said. Well said. Amazing three concluding thoughts there about perseverance and humility. If you're coasting, you're not taking enough risks. And so true. Sometimes we know God's pulling us to do something and we're holding on because we don't want to take the risk. And especially this time of year, people are kind of thinking, what's up for next year? What am I going to do this summer? Great thought there. And then remembering that honoring our creator is the ultimate purpose of everything we do. So perfect. Dr. Knolls, it has been a privilege to talk with you today. I appreciate your perspective. I appreciate your wanting to discuss a topic such as this. We often talk about getting beyond the textbook. We talk about getting beyond the lesson plans and really speaking into the lives of our students. And this is one such topic where we need to help give them that biblical worldview, to guide them to view this biblically. It's so pertinent, even to us as educators. We're doers, we're planners, we organize, we present, we perform, and we can easily feel that, failure is just not an option for us. But as best as we may try to prevent it, it's going to come. And how we personally respond and how we guide our students to respond is so key. So thank you so much for being willing to challenge us today. It's just been such a blessing having you here on the show.
No, I appreciate the opportunity very much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And listeners, this might be one you need to just go back and watch or listen to again. So much rich truth, so many things to think about from today's discussion. Of course, as we sign off for today, I'm going to remind you once again to go to teachereditionpodcast.com to learn more about the show. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and go follow us on social media. Now it's time once again to get back to your day. But it's not just any day. Every day in the classroom is your day to impact and inspire through God's power and also through His grace working in you. Now, go do what God has called you to do.